hardly go and see. But sport really taught me a thing or two about winning, but more importantly, sport taught me how to lose. Sport taught me honesty, it taught me integrity, it taught me how to follow rules. I was talking about conflict earlier on. It taught me how to deal with internal conflict, but also deal with external conflict. Sport shaped me and continues to play an important role in whatever I do in life. The values that I could imbibe through sport is what will really remain with me through the end of my life. And, I'm happy about the gold medal that I won, which you probably are happier about. But what I am most proud of is the sort of person I became in the process of winning that gold medal.
So when you say sport taught you how to deal with a loss, when you sit on a corporate board, and I know you sit on multiple corporate boards, do you sort of use your lessons learned from sport to try and make an influence there, to try and make important points there?
Of course, I think an athlete's mindset is very similar to a corporate mindset as well. You're trying to get the best out of yourself. You have to have adaptability. Also in sport, Manu was talking just now about how her gun malfunctioned, and that requires adaptability to cope up with that. Even in the corporate world, there will be things that are thrown at you, and you need to have the adaptability, have the flexibility in mindset to course correct and continuously course correct. The ability to change. An athlete's life is really all about change. An athlete's life is very dynamic. What you are today, the circumstances will be completely different tomorrow. Having the courage to change when the going is good is something what athletes do, and also in corporate houses, in successful companies do that. They have the courage to change when even things are going really, really well. If you think that things are going to remain the same and you'll continue to grow and continue to get the results that you desire, that may not eventually happen. You have to continuously push yourself out of your comfort zone. Exactly what we do in sport. We try and push ourselves out of our comfort zone every single day to get better. And that is what anybody working in any high performance environment, whether it be an artist, a musician, or a CEO, it is all about human performance at the end of everything.
देवेंद्र भाई, अभिनव जो कह रहे हैं कि स्पोर्ट से उन्होंने ये सीखा है, हारना सीखा है, टू लाइफ से डील करना सीखा है। अगर मैं एक सेंटेंस में बोलना चाहूँ आपके बारे में, जब मैं सोचता हूँ 2004 आप जब जीते, कोई फैसिलिटी था ही नहीं, आप ऐसे जाके जीते। 2016 में थोड़ा सा फैसिलिटी आया, अभी तो पैरालंपिक्स के लिए, पैरालंपिक स्पोर्ट के लिए बहुत सारे फैसिलिटीज आए। आपको स्पोर्ट ने क्या सिखाया? अगर मैं सेम सवाल आपको पूछूं, मोर बिकॉज यू हैव कम फ्रॉम वेरी डिफरेंट बैकग्राउंड, आपको स्पोर्ट ने क्या सिखाया है?
बिल्कुल, अभिनव जी ने बहुत सही बात कही है। मैं कहूँ कि स्पोर्ट्स ने मुझे जीना सिखाया है। स्पोर्ट्स ने मुझे सबसे जो बड़ा सिखाया वो ये होता है धैर्य। खिलाड़ी एक ऐसा होता है जो आज हार जाता है और कल फिर ग्राउंड में जाता है कि अगला टूर्नामेंट की मुझे तैयारी करनी है। ये खिलाड़ी कर सकता है, बाकी कोई नहीं कर सकता। उसके अलावा मैं मेरे विशेष तौर पे मेरे बारे में बोलूँ तो उस समय में कहीं न कहीं डिफरेंटली एबल जो लोग थे उनके बारे में बहुत गलत विचार थे लोगों के प्रति। कमज़ोर कहते थे, बेचारा कहते थे। कहीं न कहीं मैं बार बार वो चीज़ें सुनता था तो मैं सोचता था मैं कमज़ोर नहीं हूँ, और कहीं न कहीं कमज़ोर नहीं कहलाने की वजह से ही मैंने गेम की शुरुआत की थी। तो आज उस टाइम में और आज में बहुत फ़र्क है। 2004 की जो पैरालंपिक्स थे, तो मैं जब बताता था किसी को कि मैं पैरालंपिक खेलों में जा रहा हूँ तो कोई समझता भी नहीं था। लेकिन आज जब मैं 19 साल बाद देख रहा हूँ कि आज ओलंपिक मेडलिस्ट भी उसी पैनल में बैठा है और पैरालंपिक मेडलिस्ट भी उसी पैनल में बैठा है, तो कहीं न कहीं ये बड़ी बात है। और आज स्पोर्ट्स में जो बदलाव आया हिंदुस्तान में, चाहे पैरालंपिक हो चाहे एबल बॉडीज में हो, बहुत बड़ा बदलाव देख रहा हूँ मैं, और मुझे अच्छा लगता है जब मैं कोई खेल में प्रोग्रेस देखता हूँ। तो
देवेंद्र भाई, आपने जो बात का जिक्र किया, अगर आप सोचें जब हमने अपना म्यूजियम खोला था, आप और अभिनव दोनों आए थे बहुत काइंडली, उसमें भी हम लोग यही सेलिब्रेट किए थे, एबल बॉडीड एंड पैरालंपिक्स टुगेदर। इन्होंने इनका बीजिंग का गोल्ड मेडल का ग्लव्स मुझे दिया था और आपने आपका रियो का जर्सी दिया था, वो पास में ही है म्यूजियम में और वैसे ही रहेगा। दैट इज द होल पॉइंट ऑफ सेलिब्रेटिंग एबल बॉडीड एंड पैरालंपिक स्पोर्ट टुगेदर। अभिनव, let me ask you a slightly critical question. When and the panel says value systems. Now, when I see somebody in cricket, he or she wants to become an IPL player or a WPL player. It's not about the process, it's about the money, it's about the end goal. It is not about the hard work that an Abhinav Bindra or a Devendra Jhajharia puts in. It is about the medal. Just about the medal, because the medal will translate into 6 crore rupees. It's about social media. How do you see the value system? I think the value systems are getting eroded, which should not be the case. How do you see that, especially with the younger generation?
I mean, what you talked about, I mean, it's dangerous, frankly, to, you know, sport is all about values. Sport is based on values. You know, outcomes are great, and of course, we all want to win, and, you know, we want to have certain results, but the essence of sport is really finding joy in effort. You have to learn to enjoy the process. You have to learn to find joy in the boring and the mundane and put in those hours of work when nobody is watching you. If you're going to be only, what you're talking about is the consequence of a consequence. All the money and all the fame.
Don't you see that happening to a degree?
I don't watch sport enough like you, but possibly. You are right. I think athletes are very, very driven by outcomes and what the outcome brings further, which is also all right. I have nothing against it. But as I said earlier on, there has to be a purity in the process. There has to be purity in your pursuit, because that is what is going to take you to win at the highest level. Yes, you can win, get to a certain level, but if you want to stand on top of on the top step of an Olympic podium, then you have to be absolutely at your best, and you there's nothing that you know, you have to, that's your sport and your training, and you know, you have to give it your all, and all these extras kind of become distractions at one point of time, and you have to kind of find that appropriate balance. I think everything ends up being about finding balance, and that is something that athletes must try and do. I know it is important to have financial security, and nobody, I think it's only fair, but you have to continue to play sport with a certain set of values, and that is important.
यही सवाल, I mean, आप जब 2004 में खेल रहे थे या दीपा जी जब 2010 में खेल रहे थे तो पैसा था नहीं, फिर भी आप लोग खेलें। जो अभिनव कह रहे हैं कि जब आप ओलंपिक पोडियम पे खड़ा होना है आपको तो एक प्योरिटी चाहिए। अभी आप, हाँ अभी पैसा आया है, वो अच्छा है, स्पोर्ट के लिए भी अच्छा है, एथलीट्स के लिए भी अच्छा है, बट देवेंद्र झझारिया मुझे ये बताइए 2004, 2016, 2020 मोटिवेशन क्या है? मैं आपका एक ट्वीट पढ़ रहा था 3-4 दिन या 7 दिन पहले, आपने कहा है कि पेरिस में मैं दोबारा कोशिश करूंगा। ये ड्राइव कहाँ से, ये मोटिवेशन कहाँ से आ रहा है? हम लोग एज के बारे में बात करते हैं, आपने वो भी एज को डिफीट किया, ये कहाँ से आ रहा है?
सबसे पहले तो मैं कहूँगा कि दिल से कहूँ कि स्पोर्ट्स के अलावा मैं कुछ ज़्यादा नहीं जानता हूँ, और मुझे घूमना भी पसंद नहीं है, या मुझे कोई फ्रेंड सर्कल में बात करना भी पसंद नहीं है। तो स्पोर्ट्स को यदि मेरे से हटा दिया जाए तो मेरी लाइफ है वो बहुत बोरिंग लाइफ हो जाएगी। तो फिर मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ? तो मैं सोचता हूँ मेरे ट्रेनिंग करनी चाहिए अच्छे से, और जब तक मेरा मन कहेगा कि मैं स्पोर्ट्स कर सकता हूँ तब तक मैं स्पोर्ट्स करूँगा, ये आज कह रहा हूँ। और अभी मेरा ये बॉडी ये कह रहा है कि मैं बिल्कुल पेरिस में खेल सकता हूँ, मैं देश के लिए फिर से मेडल दिला सकता हूँ। मैं मेरी मेहनत में कमी कहीं नहीं छोड़ता, बिल्कुल मैं आज भी उतना ही डिसिप्लिन में हूँ जितना 2004 में था। और कहीं ना कहीं अभी मेरे पास जैसे कॉल आते हैं कई खिलाड़ियों के कि देवेंद्र जी आपको देख करके मैंने फिर से गेम की शुरुआत कर दी है, तो मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगता है कि मेरे को देख करके कोई गेम की शुरुआत कर रहा है कि एज फैक्टर कोई मायने नहीं रखता, आपने ये साबित कर दिया है। और ख़ास करके एथलेटिक्स में बहुत चैलेंज रहता है, तो मैं चाहता हूँ कि आने वाले टाइम में जो हमारा पेरिस है उसमें मैं ही नहीं पूरा भारत के जितने भी खिलाड़ी हैं वो बहुत शानदार परफॉर्मेंस देंगे और उसमें एक मैं भी शामिल रहूँगा.
You wanted to say something to him?
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, to continue to find that purity and that joy for so long, it's very incredible.
Same question to you. You did it for 16, 17 years. When you look back, how do you look back? I mean, to a career that is unrivaled, or you now say that, okay, 180 competitions, 180 medals? No, the process, what I've learned today, that's more. How do you look back at a career which is perhaps one of the greatest in Indian sport?
I don't know. I mean, as I said, I don't look back at those medals for sure. I mean, it's not that I have to look at my Olympic gold medal because my self-worth is not based on how where my name appeared on the ranking list of a sporting competition. I tried to build a life outside of sport, and sport got me a lot of joy. But looking back, I think what I really look back at is the relationships that I was able to build, frankly. The relationships that sport helped me build with my mom and dad, for example. My mom traveled with me as a 12-year-old boy to Germany, and it was dark and cold, and we formed a great relationship, and sport helped me do that. It helped me get closer to my dad, because it was because of my dad I got interested in shooting. I used to have some guns at home, and he used to clean them every Sunday, and that is how I got into sport, and that is how I got into shooting. The relationships that I was able to build with my coaches. I spoke about Coach Uwe, who I somewhat found a way to work with, but we are very, very good friends now. My Coach Uwe, who I really hated, now is my stockbroker, my stock advisor, and we talk almost every day still. The relationships I had with Gabby and Heinz, they're like my parents to me almost. The relationships that I was even able to build with competitors, for example. Nicolo Campriani, who was my biggest rival when I was competing, is one of my best friends today. And we do interesting things together. So I think sport helped me build these relationships, and these are the relationships which will last forever. Of course, I'm absolutely thrilled and pleased about standing on top of the Olympic podium, don't get me wrong on that. But that is not the only thing that was part of this journey, and that is not the only part of the journey that I value. I add value to all these other aspects which were equally important, or if not more important than actually the outcomes that everybody tries to glorify. Of course it was important, but all these other elements on a personal level were far more important to me.
देवेंद्र भाई, अभिनव जो कह रहे हैं, एक देवेंद्र झाझरिया है, एक अभिनव बिंद्रा है, एक अंजू जॉर्ज है, या दीपा मलिक है, या मीरा चानू है, जिनमें मैं प्योरिटी देखता हूं, बट ऐसे बहुत सारे एथलीट्स को मैं ये भी देखता हूं कि एक मेडल के बाद जब उनके साथ पहले बातचीत होता था, उन मेडल जीतने के बाद, पैसा आने के बाद, वो चेंज हो जाते हैं, उनका बिहेवियरल चेंज हो जाता है, उनका तरीका अलग हो जाता है, पूरा चीज बदल जाता है. और ये मैं इंडिया में बहुत देखता हूं, एंड this I've seen in cricket, this I've seen in Olympic sport, and again the question of values come. मैं जब अभिनव को देखता हूँ ओडिशा में जाते हुए, गर्मी में जाके वो ट्राइबल किड्स के साथ बात करते रहते हैं, क्यों कर रहे हैं? क्योंकि ये बदलाव चाहते हैं, सोसाइटी को इंप्रूव करना चाहते हैं. वो मैं बाकी एथलीट्स में नहीं देखता हूँ. क्या आपको लगता है that because of the while money is good, but because of the influx of money, there is this dark side of sport that younger athletes have to be careful about?
बिल्कुल, स्पोर्ट्स में स्टेबिलिटी बहुत ज़रूरी है, और स्टेबिलिटी आपकी तब आएगी जब आप स्पोर्ट्स के अंदर ध्यान दोगे सिर्फ, क्योंकि आपका स्पोर्ट्स से ध्यान हटता है तो आपकी परफॉर्मेंस डाउन आती है. कहीं ना कहीं पैसा बहुत अच्छा है, नो डाउट, पर आप पैसा को किस तरह से देख रहे हो आप. एक तो ये होता है कि मैं पैसे को ट्रेनिंग में मेरे यूज कर रहा हूँ, या फ्यूचर के लिए ये है मेरे लिए. एक ये होता है कि पैसा मेरा एंजॉयमेंट के लिए. बहुत फ़र्क होता है. तो कहीं ना कहीं जब खिलाड़ियों के पास पैसा आता है तो बहुत से खिलाड़ी भटक जाते हैं, और अच्छी जॉब मिलती है उनको, या बहुत स्पॉन्सरशिप अच्छी मिलती है. तो कहीं ना कहीं मैं तो ये मानता हूँ कि उन खिलाड़ियों को विशेष तौर पे ऐसी स्टोरी पढ़नी चाहिए. चाहे बिंद्रा जी की स्टोरी पढ़ लो, आप कितना लंबा स्पोर्ट्स किया है, दीपा जी की पढ़ लो, अंजू की पढ़ो, उनको ध्यान देना चाहिए. और जो सीनियर खिलाड़ी हैं उनको, जैसे आपने बताया, ट्राइबल एरिया में जाते हैं, क्योंकि हम चाहते हैं कि हिंदुस्तान एक स्पोर्ट्स कंट्री बने, हमारा ये मकसद है, और कहीं ना कहीं हम उसमें आगे बढ़ भी रहे हैं, हम अच्छी परफॉर्मेंस दे रहे हैं, यही कहना है मेरा।
Last few questions, Abhinav. I mean, we are judged by the number of medals. And the only headline that I've seen is, okay, country of 1 billion, 2 medals. Where is the process there? I mean, here also, to our disadvantage, we are celebrating elite athletes. All my panelists are either corporates or elite athletes.
Yeah, but you glorify this number of 1.3 billion, but out of these 1.3 billion, how many play sport? I think that is a question that you need to ask, and perhaps it's not going to be too many. And if you look at that equation, we are not doing too badly. Yeah? But I think it is really about building a culture for sport in this country. It is building a culture for sport, firstly at the recreational level, where you give young kids an opportunity to experience sport for the sheer joy of playing sport, but also to imbibe values that you're talking about, to imbibe sporting values, to build character, whether they go to an Olympics or whether they compete at any level, that's secondary. But just playing sport to imbibe the health benefits through sport and to imbibe certain and build character through sport, I think is an incredibly important element for nation building. We are such a young country, and I think it's never been so important than today to be able to do this. Then the second point is to build a structure in sport at the grassroots level, which allows a certain structure right at the district level to have access to play, and then have access to coaches, for example. And I was speaking to Adil this morning, and in the incredible work that he's done in building structures for sport, and the 10,000 odd coaches that are getting trained. That is the sort of work that needs to happen to really empower the ecosystem from the bottom up. Yes, it is important to look at the 1% athletes who will go to an Olympic Games. But even more important is to look at the 99% of athletes who will not get to an Olympic Games. When you build that 99%, then your 1% will automatically become stronger. And the focus really needs to shift. Of course, you need to continuously shift, have focus on the 1%, but the focus really now needs to shift in building that base, going down to the base.
Fantastic. और यही सवाल, आप देवेंद्र झाझरिया मेडल जीते, हम सेलिब्रेट कर लिया, दीपा मलिक मेडल जीत गए, सेलिब्रेट कर लिया, विनोद कुमार, अगर आपको याद है टोक्यो में उनको मेडल मिला, फिर उनका मेडल छीन लिया गया बिकॉज ऑफ अ इशू. विनोद कुमार आज के दिन में क्या कर रहे हैं किसी को पता है? नहीं पता है. मेंटल हेल्थ के बारे में मैं लास्ट सवाल अभिनव से मेंटल हेल्थ के बारे में पूछूंगा. जब सिमोन बाइल्स मेंटल हेल्थ के बारे में बात करते हैं तो पूरा दुनिया बात करते हैं. हमारे एथलीट विनोद कुमार जब हार जाते हैं, कोई भी एथलीट हार जाते हैं, उसके बारे में कोई बात नहीं किया जाता, खाली विनर्स के बारे में बात किया जाता है. देवेंद्र भाई.
बिल्कुल सही बात है, और मैं इससे एग्री भी करता हूँ, क्योंकि अभी अभी एक मैं प्रोग्राम में गया था, तो आपने बहुत बड़ा नाम सुना होगा, एक बार बुधिया दौड़ेगा. अभी वो हमारे राजस्थान में हनुमानगढ़ में थोड़ी सी ट्रेनिंग कर रहा है, और उसका कहीं नाम नहीं है, गायब हो गया वो नाम लगभग. तो मेरे को देख करके बहुत अजीब सा लगा कि कहाँ नाम था. तो मेंटल स्ट्रेंथ के लिए ऐसा है कि आपको सबसे पहले खुद को ही तैयार होना पड़ेगा कि मेरे साथ जो भी हो रहा है कोई बात नहीं, ये दौर है, या निकल जाएगा, मैं आगे बेहतर करने की कोशिश करूँगा और इस दुनिया में मैं फिर नजर आऊँगा. तो कहीं ना कहीं अपने आप के अंदर से ही मेंटल स्ट्रेंथ लेनी पड़ेगी आपको, और इसमें जितना भी हो उसके एज ए सीनियर प्लेयर से कोई राय लेता है तो उनको भी देनी चाहिए राय.
Abhinav, last one to you. When we talk about mental health in our country, it's like, अरे कुछ नहीं हुआ है, ठीक हो जाएगा, चलो. I mean, you consult a psychologist, you consult somebody, then you're ill, then you have a problem. It's as if it's a serious issue with you. How do we deal with issues like mental health, especially when it comes to sport?
Well, I think there is a misconception in global sport, not just in India, in global sport, that athletes are immune to any kind of mental health issues, and that is the basic problem, because athletes are conceived to be some superhuman beings. At the end of the day, we are just ordinary human beings. We're as vulnerable as anybody else. We probably have more red flags in our career than normal folks. I mean, there's the constant pressure of performance. You're judged every time you go out there and compete. There's the whole aspect of dealing with failure. There's the whole aspect of dealing with success. There's constant travel. There is an impending end of a career. There is a career transition. There are injuries. Physical injuries have a huge aspect also on your mental health. So there are a lot of red flags in an athlete's career. But also importantly, what is very important is to build a degree of balance in an athlete's career. While we are totally after outcomes, and which is fine, and which is good, you also have to realize, and especially in an India sort of a situation, where you are now going to see much more participation of young Indians participate in sport with different wonderful programs that have been established. What that will also mean is that more young Indians will end up failing in sport, because that is the very, very nature of sport. You will have more failure than success. So the whole aspect of having an idea of a dual career in an athlete's life is also an important aspect, making sure that they do get a basic education. It helps build a degree of balance in an athlete's life, and all that really helps then that they do not put all their eggs in one basket. They do not equate their self-worth to where their name appears on the ranking list of a sporting competition, because if you do that, it's a very slippery slope to be in, because every time you lose, and you will lose a lot, you will feel terrible about yourself, and you get into a certain pattern, which then becomes dangerous for certain human beings, and then problems develop. So I think very important is to build a positive and psychologically safe environment for athletes to participate in sport. It is very, very important to build a positive culture of sport. That is very important. The culture in a high-performance environment which is positive, which is safe. It is all right to fail. It is okay to fail, and failure can be accepted. I think that is very important. We, of course, have to win, and we have to have outcomes, but it is not always going to happen, and we have to be all right with that.
If you don't learn from this session, then I don't think we will learn from any session. These words, these are real life words. I'll take one question. I'm going to Adil Sumariwala to ask that question of Abhinav Bindra or Devendra Jhajharia, because somebody who's been an athlete is now making a fundamental difference to sport by being a federation president, which is doing fantastic work. And here are two people who've, they talk about purity, and that's where I see purity of process. Can we have a microphone to Adil Sumariwala for the only Shubhan? Can we have a microphone to Adil, please, for one question to either of my panelists, and I'll close this session. Can we have a microphone, or I'll give mine? I'll give mine, don't worry.
No, I think especially Abhinav, because we keep hearing, and I sit on the MOC, that we need mental trainers, and mental trainers charging $1,500 a session, etc. How important is that? I think we need to understand how important is that in the training of a shooter.
It is definitely important, but I think even more important than that is to build a correct culture for athletes right at the grassroots level, because the foundation of your mental strength will only come from how stable you are as a human being. And that you're not going to gain from the field of play. That is going to be how you live life. And that positive culture, that positive environment really has to be built at that grassroots level. Also the entire...
How do we build that? At the grassroots level? Because we are happy to throw money to say, get the best mental trainer for our shooters at any cost. How do we... So that is done, and that we need to do, and we'll do it. What do we do there at the bottom? That's the question.
I think I'll use the topic of the session. I think paying more emphasis on values. I think that is very, very important. Sport stands for so many things, and Adil, you know it more than me. I mean, you've been an Olympian, and you know what Olympic values is all about. Finding joy in effort right from day one. Being process-oriented, encouraging athletes to have a degree of balance right when they start, and inculcating all these things from the bottom up. I think that is what is going to build that base, build that foundation where your $1,500 mental trainer will actually help and not just be a placebo.
Thank you. I mean, I would have taken many. I've seen several hands. Unfortunately, there's no time because it's an intense day. I'll move on to the next session, but before that, may I please call upon my friend Srinjoy Bose to come and felicitate this particular panel. Abhinav Bindra and Devendra Jhajharia. Purity of process. that's what sport is all about. That's what the best are all about. And this has been an absolute education as far as I'm concerned to have the two of them on stage for me with this panel. Srinjoy Bose, please can we come with our gift for our two panelists. Like I've said, this was specially crafted for this particular, this Trailblazers conclave. Srinjoy Bose to Abhinav Bindra and to Devendra Jhajharia. Ladies and gentlemen, put a round of applause for my two panelists, Abhinav Bindra and Devendra Jhajharia. We'll take a photo and then we'll move on to the next panel. Thank you very much. Thank you, Abhinav. Thank you, Devendra Bhai. And we'll move on to the next panel. Shubhan, over to you.
Thank you, Boria. And some